The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. Welcome back to the Berean Pursuit. This is week 15, day 1. Today's reading is from Judges chapters 7 and 8 and Luke 22. Last time in the book of Judges, we read about Deborah, who was a prophetess who had to tell the men, especially Barak, to lead the army against the Canaanites and Sisera and his army. And since Barak needed Deborah to go with him to the battle, the victory was given into the hand of a woman, not Deborah, but a woman named Jael, who hammered a tent peg through the temple of Sisera. And Barak and Deborah sang a song of praise for God, but especially of the people who went to battle, and of Jael, who did that for God's people. We also saw the beginning of the story of Gideon. Gideon is someone who is hiding in a wine press to thresh his wheat because of the ones that would come and take everything, which were the Midianites, the Amalekites, and other people from the east. They would all come through with their camels and just take everything. And so they had to do these things secretly. But while he was doing that, the angel of the Lord came and spoke to him and told him to get an army together to go fight against them. And so he does this. And so he has gotten the army together. He's asked for the sign to prove that God was really going to save them through his hand. God has done that for him through the wet fleece or the dry fleece in the wet ground. And so now we're ready for the reading for today, the continuation of that story in Judges chapters 7 and 8. Early in the morning, Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the men with him camped beside the spring of Harod. And the camp of Midian was north of them in the valley near the hill of Moreh. Then the Lord said to Gideon, "You have too many people for me to deliver Midian into their hands, lest Israel glorify themselves over me, saying, 'My own hand has saved me.' Now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, 'Whoever is fearful and trembling may turn back and leave Mount Gilead.' So 22,000 of them turned back, but 10,000 remained. Then the Lord said to Gideon, 'There are still too many people. Take them down to the water, and I will sift them for you there. If I say to you, this one shall go with you, he shall go. But if I say, this one shall not go with you, he shall not go.' So Gideon brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to him, 'Separate those who lap the water with their tongues like a dog from those who kneel to drink.' And the number of those who lapped the water with their hands to their mouths was 300 men. All the others knelt to drink. Then the Lord said to Gideon, 'With the 300 men who lapped the water, I will save you, and deliver the Midianites into your hand, but all the others are to go home.' So Gideon sent the rest of the Israelites to their tents, but kept the 300 men who took charge of the provisions at ram's horns of the others. And the camp of Midian lay below him in the valley. That night the Lord said to Gideon, 'Get up and go down against the camp, for I have delivered it into your hand. But if you are afraid to do so, then go down to the camp with your servant Purah, and listen to what they are saying. Then your hands will be strengthened to attack the camp.' So he went with Purah his servant to the outpost where armed men were guarding the camp. Now the Midianites, Amalekites, and all the other people of the east had settled in the valley like a swarm of locusts, and their camels were as countless as the sand on the seashore. And as Gideon arrived, a man was telling his friend about a dream. 'Behold, I had a dream,' he said, 'and I saw a loaf of barley bread come tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent so hard that the tent overturned and collapsed.' His friend replied, 'This is nothing less than the sword of Gideon, son of Joash the Israelite. God has delivered Midian and the whole camp into his hand.' When Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed in worship. He returned to the camp of Israel and said, 'Get up, for the Lord has delivered the camp of Midian into your hand.' And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies and gave each man a ram's horn in one hand and a large jar in the other, containing a torch. "Watch me and do as I do," Gideon said. "When I come to the outskirts of the camp, do exactly as I do. When I and all who are with me blow our horns, then you are also to blow your horns from all around the camp and shout, 'For the Lord and for Gideon!'" Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, just after the changing of the guard. They blew their horns and broke the jars that were in their hands. The 3 companies blew their horns and shattered their jars. Holding the torches in their left hands and the horns in their right hands, they shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" Each Israelite took his position around the camp, and the entire Midianite army fled, crying out as they ran. And when the 300 ram's horns sounded, the Lord set all the men in the camp against one another with their swords. The army fled to Bethshittah near Zererah as far as the border of Abel-Meholah near Tabbath. There the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali, Asher, and all Manasseh, and they pursued the Midianites. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim to say, "Come down against the Midianites and seize the waters of the Jordan ahead of them as far as Bethbara." So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they captured the waters of the Jordan as far as Bethbara. They also captured Oreb and Zeb, the 2 princes of Midian, and they killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb and Zeb at the winepress of Zeb. So they pursued the Midianites and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of the Jordan. Then the men of Ephraim said to Gideon, "Why have you done this to us? Why did you fail to call us when you went to fight against Midian?" And they contended with him violently. But Gideon answered them, "Now what have I accomplished compared to you? Are not the gleanings of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? God has delivered Oreb and Zeb, the 2 princes of Midian, into your hand. What was I able to do compared to you?" When he had said this, their anger against him subsided. Then Gideon and his 300 men came to the Jordan and crossed it, exhausted yet still in pursuit. So Gideon said to the men of Succoth, "Please give my troops some bread, for they are exhausted, and I am still pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian." But the leaders of Succoth asked, "Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your possession, that we should give bread to your army?" "Very well," Gideon replied. "When the Lord has delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will tear your flesh with the thorns and briars of the wilderness." From there he went up to Penuel and asked the same from them, but the men of Penuel gave the same response as the men of Succoth. So Gideon told the men of Penuel, "When I return in triumph, I will tear down this tower." Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor with their army of about 15,000 men, all that were left of the armies of the people of the east. 120,000 swordsmen had already fallen. And Gideon went up by way of the caravan route east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and he attacked their army, taking them by surprise. When Zebah and Zalmunna fled, Gideon pursued and captured these 2 kings of Midian, routing their entire army. After this, Gideon son of Joash returned from the battle along the ascent of Heres. There he captured a young man of Succoth and interrogated him. The young man wrote down for him the names of the 77 leaders and elders of Succoth. And Gideon went to the men of Succoth and said, "Here are Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, 'Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your possession, that we should give bread to your weary men?'" Then he took the elders of the city, and using the thorns and briars of the wilderness, he disciplined the men of Succoth. He also pulled down the tower of Penuel and killed the men of the city. Next, Gideon asked Zebah and Zalmunna, "What kind of men did you kill at Tabor?" "Men like you," they answered, "each one resembling the son of a king." "They were my brothers," Gideon replied, "the sons of my mother. As surely as the Lord lives, if you had let them live, I would not kill you." So he said to Jether his firstborn, "Get up and kill them." But the young man did not draw his sword. He was fearful because he was still a youth. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, "Get up and kill us yourself, for as the man is, so is his strength." So Gideon got up and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and he took the crescent ornaments from the necks of their camels. Then the Israelites said to Gideon, "Rule over us, you and your son and grandson, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian." But Gideon replied, "I will not rule over you, nor will my son. The Lord shall rule over you." Then he added, "Let me make a request of you, that each of you give me an earring from his plunder." For the enemies had gold earrings because they were Ishmaelites. "We will give them gladly," they replied. So they spread out a garment, and each man threw an earring from his plunder into it. The weight of the gold earrings he had requested was 1,700 shekels, in addition to the crescent ornaments, the pendants, the purple garments of the kings of Midian, and the chains from the necks of their camels. From all this Gideon made an ephod, which he placed in Ophrah, his hometown. But soon all Israel prostituted themselves by worshiping it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and his household. In this way Midian was subdued before the Israelites and did not raise its head again. So the land had rest for 40 years in the days of Gideon, and he, Jerubbaal son of Joash, returned home and settled down. Gideon had 70 sons of his own, since he had many wives. His concubine, who dwelt in Shechem, also bore him a son, and he named him Abimelech. Later, Gideon son of Joash died at a ripe old age and was buried in the tomb of his father Joash in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. As soon as Gideon was dead, the Israelites turned and prostituted themselves with the Baals, and they set up Baal-berith as their god. The Israelites failed to remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hands of all their enemies on every side. They did not show kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, for all the good things he had done for Israel. All right, now to the New Testament in Luke chapter 22. All right, last time in Luke chapter 21, we saw at the beginning Jesus talking about this poor widow who was putting coins into the treasury of the temple. She was giving everything that she had, and he talked about how she was giving more than the others because it was everything that she had. But that giving was for the upkeep of the temple, and he said that that temple was not going to last. It was going to be torn down, not one stone left on another. And so he went through this chapter explaining to his disciples when this was going to happen, what were the things leading up to it, and the things about what was going to happen when the temple was destroyed. So now we're ready for our reading in Luke 22. Now the feast of unleavened bread, called the Passover, was approaching, and the chief priests and scribes were looking for a way to put Jesus to death, for they feared the people. Then Satan entered Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12. And Judas went to discuss with the chief priests and temple officers how he might betray Jesus to them. They were delighted and agreed to give him money. Judas consented and began to look for an opportunity to betray Jesus to them in the absence of a crowd. Then came the day of unleavened bread, on which the Passover lamb was to be sacrificed. Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and prepare for us to eat the Passover." "Where do you want us to prepare it?" they asked. He answered, "When you enter the city, a man carrying a jug of water will meet you. Follow him to the house he enters and say to the owner of that house, 'The teacher asks, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And he will show you a large upper room already furnished. Make preparations there." So they went and found it just as Jesus had told them, and they prepared the Passover. When the hour had come, Jesus reclined at the table with his apostles, and he said to them, "I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before my suffering, for I tell you that I will not eat it again until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God." And taking the cup, he gave thanks and said, "Take this and divide it among yourselves. For I tell you that I will not drink of the fruit of the vine from now on until the kingdom of God comes." And he took the bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, after supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. Look, the hand of my betrayer is with mine on the table. Indeed, the Son of Man will go as it has been determined, but woe to that man who betrays him." Then they began to question among themselves which of them was going to do this. A dispute also arose among the disciples as to which of them would be considered the greatest. So Jesus declared, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those in authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you shall not be like them. Instead, the greatest among you shall be like the youngest, and the one who leads like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who reclines at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who reclines? But I am among you as one who serves. You are the ones who have stood by me in my trials, and I bestow on you a kingdom, just as my Father has bestowed one on me, so that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift each of you like wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith will not fail, and when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers." "Lord," said Peter, "I am ready to go with you even to prison and to death." But Jesus replied, "I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow today until you have denied 3 times that you know me." Then Jesus asked them, "When I sent you out without purse or bag or sandals, did you lack anything?" "Nothing," they answered. "Now, however," he told them, "the one with a purse should take it, and likewise a bag, and the one without a sword should sell his cloak and buy one. For I tell you that this scripture must be fulfilled in me." And he was numbered with the transgressors. For what was written about me is reaching its fulfillment. So they said, "Look, Lord, here are 2 swords." "That is enough," he answered. Jesus went out as usual to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. When he came to the place, he told them, "Pray that you will not enter into temptation." And he withdrew about a stone's throw beyond them, where he knelt down and prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Then an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And in his anguish he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling to the ground. When Jesus rose from prayer and returned to the disciples, he found them asleep, exhausted from sorrow. "Why are you sleeping?" he asked. "Get up and pray, so that you will not enter into temptation." While he was still speaking, a crowd arrived, led by the man called Judas, one of the 12. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" Those around Jesus saw what was about to happen and said, "Lord, should we strike with our swords?" And one of them struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his right ear. But Jesus answered, "No more of this." And he touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priests, temple officers, and elders who had come for him, "Have you come out with swords and clubs as you would against an outlaw? Every day I was with you in the temple courts, and you did not lay a hand on me. But this hour belongs to you and to the power of darkness." Then they seized Jesus, led him away, and took him into the house of the high priest. And Peter followed at a distance. When those present had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. A servant girl saw him seated in the firelight and looked intently at him. "This man also is with him," she said. But Peter denied it. "Woman, I do not know him," he said. A short time later, someone else saw him and said, "You also are one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." About an hour later, another man insisted, "Certainly, this man was with him, for he too is a Galilean." "Man, I do not know what you are talking about," Peter replied. While he was still speaking, the rooster crowed, and the Lord turned and looked at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word that the Lord had spoken to him, "Before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. The men who were holding Jesus began to mock him and beat him. They blindfolded him and kept demanding, "Prophesy, who hit you?" And they said many other blasphemous things against him. At daybreak, the council of the elders of the people, both the chief priests and scribes, met together. They led Jesus into their Sanhedrin and said, "If you are the Christ, tell us." Jesus answered, "If I tell you, you will not believe. And if I ask you a question, you will not answer. But from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the power of God." So they all asked, "Are you then the Son of God?" He replied, "You say that I am." "Why do we need any more testimony?" they declared. "We have heard it for ourselves from his own lips." All right, in the reading today, we finished the story of Gideon, as God gave him victory against this huge army through only 300 men. And it was very clear that God did that. He used only 300 men when he could have had a much bigger army in order to prove that the victory was given by God and not by their own strength. And so Gideon was right when they said afterwards, "You should rule over us." And he said, "No, the Lord shall rule over you." But unfortunately, he made that ephod for some reason, and they turned it into an idol. And it seems that even Gideon himself and his family were caught up with it. And then we're going to see next time that his son Abimelech, that was mentioned here, becomes the next problem for Israel. Whereas most of these problems were external with these nations around them coming in, Abimelech is going to be the problem from within, and basically be a result of their turning to Baal to worship him instead of worshiping the Lord. And so we'll look at that in tomorrow's reading, Lord willing. In the book of Luke, we read about what we call the Last Supper, when Jesus has this meal with his disciples on the first day of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb was to be sacrificed. They ate that Passover, but Jesus also instituted something new. So just as the Passover was instituted before the thing happened, that it was to remember, Jesus is instituting this before the thing happens, that it is to remember. He says, "Do this in remembrance of me," but he hasn't even done the thing yet that is to be remembered. Then we see him going out to the garden with his disciples, and the prayer that he offers there, that God's will be done, even though he does not want to go through this. And he submits to God. When his disciples try to fight to defend him, he says, "No more of this." And he does not allow them to defend him. He gives himself over to be arrested, to go through the mockery and the trial, which is not a true trial at all. They simply deny that he's the Son of God and say that his claim is blasphemy, that is deserving of death, and yet he had evidence, plenty of evidence, that that is who he was, but they were ignoring evidence. They were not interested in evidence, and so they convicted him. They said he is guilty because of his testimony. All right, well, that's the reading for today, so join me again tomorrow as we continue on the Berean pursuit.